The night they tried to burn my home to the ground, they thought they were destroying my life. What they didn't know was that I had spent 25 years writing and enforcing the very municipal fire codes they just violated. I am Marcus Thorne, and this is the story of how one homeowners association, president drunk on power and blinded by greed, picked a fight with the wrong man. I'm standing in the middle of what used to be my kitchen. The air still carries the acrid scent of wet charcoal and melted insulation. Ash crunches under my boots, every step reminding me of the laughter and warmth that once filled these walls. My children used to scatter chicken feed just outside that back window, their voices ringing across the yard while my wife tended her herb garden. Now, all that remains is a blackened shell and a silence that feels heavier than smoke. But here's what Brenda Kensington never accounted for. When you try to burn down the house of a man who literally wrote the book on property safety, you'd better not leave a trail. She left everything: records, evidence, witnesses, and that trail led to the unraveling of a multi-million-dollar conspiracy she thought would stay buried. Have you ever faced HOA harassment or had a neighbor cross the line? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else know they're not alone. 6 months ago, life was simple. Our Toker property, inherited from my grandfather, was a little slice of country tucked inside a suburban neighborhood. While the rest of Willowbrook was quarter-acre lots with white picket fences, manicured lawns, and HOA covenants, we had something different: a wraparound porch, a vegetable garden, a workshop where I restored old furniture, and yes, a flock of chickens that provided fresh eggs and a little chaos every morning. It was the kind of home that smelled like basil and turned soil, where mornings began with coffee on the porch and ended with the hum of crickets in the dark. My wife, Alina, a high school principal, used to say we lived inside a postcard. Our teenage twins, Dakota and River, thought I was the most boring dad alive until all of this began. Funny how danger has a way of making even municipal code enforcement sound exciting. Then came Brenda. Picture every stereotype of a self-appointed HOA queen. Platinum blonde hair that never moved in the wind, a Lexus so spotless it looked allergic to dirt, and yoga pants worth more than most people's rent. She arrived in our neighborhood like a hurricane, disguised as a welcome wagon, carrying a tray of cookies and a clipboard. "Welcome to Willowbrook," she chirped, even though we'd lived there 15 years longer than she had. Then came the catch: an HOA application, presented like it was just a formality. I smiled, thanked her for the cookies, and explained politely that our property predated the HOA by decades. We weren't required to join, and frankly, we liked our independence. Her smile flickered, just for a second, like a neon sign shorting out, and in that second, I saw the real Brenda. Weeks later, the complaints began. Anonymous letters, certified notices about community standards, city reports claiming we were operating a commercial farm. I almost laughed until I realized how relentless she could be. 17 separate violations in a single week. Chickens too loud, workshop unsafe, garden too big. Every morning, my desk at City Hall was piled high with paperwork carrying my own address, all in Brenda's unmistakable handwriting. But Brenda had made a mistake. She didn't know that I'd helped write the very ordinances she was twisting. Our chickens, legal; our garden, legal; our workshop, legal, all protected by agricultural grandfather clauses older than Brenda's career. And yet, she pushed harder. She started scheduling neighborhood wellness walks past our house. A parade of HOA wives in matching athleisure, clutching phones like weapons, whispering as they snapped photos of our coop like it was a crime scene. Their giggles mixed with the indignant clucking of our chickens, who had suddenly become unwilling Instagram stars. It would have been laughable if it hadn't been so calculated. I knew harassment when I saw it. For 25 years, I'd investigated slumlords, fraudsters, and code violators who thought they could bully the system. Brenda was playing the same game, just wearing better perfume. And like every bully, she got sloppy when she thought she was winning. On 3 separate complaints, she listed our property as a commercial farm operation. False information on municipal forms is not just harassment, it's a misdemeanor. That's when I filed my own report, citing every one of her lies. The city sent out an inspector, a rookie kid barely out of college. He walked our land with me, clipboard shaking as I pulled out decades of permits, maps, and ordinances. One by one, every complaint crumbled under the weight of facts. Chickens, legal; garden, personal use; workshop, permitted since 1963. By the end of the day, a bright yellow notice hung on our front gate. No violations found. It glowed like a beacon visible straight from Brenda's living room window. That was the first time I saw her mask slip completely. She stormed across the street, voice sharp enough to cut glass, accusing the inspector of incompetence and me of manipulation. But the rookie held firm. "Ma'am," he said, "this man knows municipal code better than most lawyers. Everything here is perfectly legal." Her face flushed red, her finger stabbing the air at me. "This isn't over, Marcus. There's more than one way to solve a property problem." Her words hung heavy, like smoke before a fire. That was the moment I realized this battle wasn't about chickens, or gardens, or community standards. This was about power. And Brenda Kensington wasn't just a neighbor with too much time on her hands. She was something far more dangerous, and I was about to uncover just how far she was willing to go. When bullies think they're winning, that's when they get sloppy. Brenda Kensington was no different. After the city inspector stamped our property clean of violations, she could have backed off, swallowed her pride, and moved on with her Pinterest-perfect life. But Brenda wasn't just stubborn, she was strategic. If she couldn't win through paperwork, she would win through pressure, and she had an entire neighborhood to weaponize. Within days, a new group popped up on Facebook. Concerned Parents of Willowbrook. The name sounded harmless, even noble. But when Alina stumbled across the page during her lunch break at school, her hands shook as she scrolled. Photos of our property littered the Fedor workshop labeled a fire trap, our compost pile described as a rodent nest, even our rain barrel accused of breeding disease-carrying mosquitoes. The comments cut deeper than I'd expected. Parents asked if it was safe for their children to play near our home. Rumors spread that our chickens carried salmonella, that our soil was laced with chemicals. The lies moved faster than the truth ever could. Alina tried to brush it off. People will see through this, she told me, forcing a smile. But that night, Dakota came home from school, unusually quiet. She pushed her dinner around her plate until Alina asked what was wrong. Nobody sat with me at lunch, she whispered. Sarah's mom said, our house might make people sick. River, usually the life of the bus stop, added softly, Tyler's parents won't let him come over anymore. They said something about liability issues. That was the night I realized Brenda wasn't just attacking me, she was attacking my family. She wasn't content with paperwork and harassment. She wanted us isolated, ostracized, and broken. At first it worked. Neighbors who used to wave started closing their blinds. Conversations at the mailbox cut short when Alina walked up. The silence at the bus stop in the mornings was worse than shouting it, was the silence of people too afraid to take a side. But I'd seen these tactics before. Social isolation is a classic control move, makes someone a pariah, and soon they'll surrender just to stop the bleeding. Brenda thought she'd invented something clever. She hadn't. She'd just given me more patterns to document. And while she was busy rallying her neighborhood army, I was busy digging into her past. I started simple public property records, business filings, inspection histories. Years of municipal enforcement had given me skills most people didn't know existed. Within hours, I found the first crack in Brenda's perfect facade. She owned 3 rental properties across town through an LLC called Premier Property Solutions. On paper, they looked clean. But inspection histories told another story: outdated wiring, unpermitted additions, fire code violations. And here was the beautiful part. I had personally written some of the very inspection protocols she had failed. Cross-referencing dates, I discovered 3 unresolved violations at one of her duplexes. A bathroom addition without permits, a blocked fire exit, and an electrical panel flagged for replacement 2 years ago. All of it ignored, all of it dangerous. If Brenda wanted to play compliance war, I was happy to oblige. I filed fresh complaints, worded almost exactly like the ones she had filed against me. Petty? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. The city moved quickly. Fines totaling over $2,000 landed on her desk, mandatory corrections within 30 days, or she'd be responsible for relocating tenants. Her tenants weren't pleased. Either they received notices the same afternoon. Suddenly, Brenda's empire of control was showing its first cracks. But when a bully feels cornered, they lash out. Friday evening, I ran into her in the Walmart parking lot. She stormed up to me, voice dripping with venom, ignoring the half-dozen shoppers watching. You think you're clever, Marcus? Hiding behind your codebook? Some problems can't be solved with paperwork. Some problems require more creative solutions. The words hung in the fluorescent air like poison. Mrs. Henderson, a neighbor watching from 2 aisles over, gasped audibly. I kept my voice calm, measured, loud enough for everyone to hear. Are you threatening me, ma'am? Brenda's eyes darted around, realizing too late that she'd overplayed her hand. I'm just saying. Accidents happen. House fires, gas leaks, old properties fall apart. It was the first time she'd slipped openly, and I made sure every witness heard it. That night, Alina and I sat on the back porch, the sunset painting our garden gold. But the peace felt fragile, like glass that could shatter at any moment. Alina sipped her coffee and stared into the distance. The community's split, she said softly. Half think we're dangerous lunatics, half think Brenda's lost her mind. And the rest, they just want it all to go away. She was right. The neighborhood was fracturing into Camp Steam Brenda, made up of new transplants and investment owners. Team Marcus, mostly old-timers who valued independence. And the neutrals, retirees who didn't want conflict on their doorstep. But something else worried me more. Calls had started coming in to my office, anonymous voices asking about my patrol schedule, my routes home. At first I brushed it off, until Dakota mentioned a man in a pickup truck asking if I was home, pretending to be a delivery driver with no packages. That was the moment my stomach turned cold. This wasn't just a feud anymore. It wasn't about chickens or gardens. It wasn't even about community politics. This was organized, deliberate, and dangerous. So I did what I've always done best. I started building a case. I photographed Brenda's wellness walks, logged every anonymous car that slowed by our driveway, saved every Facebook post, every rumor, every whisper. Alina and the kids began carrying their phones, ready to record any encounter. Our property became a fortress of documentation, every camera, every sensor, every record, legal, admissible, undeniable, because I knew something Brenda didn't. Harassment campaigns always look powerful until you shine a light on them. Then, they crumble under their own weight. But I had no idea just how deep her plan went, or how far she'd go to make sure we lost everything. Bullies escalate when their games stop working. By the time Brenda realized her complaints, her Facebook gossip, and her neighborhood pressure weren't breaking us. She had already stepped onto darker ground, and the deeper she sank, the more dangerous it became. It began with false 911 calls. 3 times in 1 month, police showed up at our home for domestic disturbances that never happened. The officers, embarrassed, found us eating dinner or playing board games, but each call went on record, each one designed to paint me as unstable. Filing false police reports is a felony, and Brenda knew it, but she also knew how long it could take for justice to catch up. Then came the chickens. Our flock, once the heart of our mornings, was found dead, poisoned with antifreeze in their water supply. My daughter Dakota sobbed as we buried them, her tears mixing with my fury. The vet's report confirmed deliberate poisoning, and though the security cameras didn't catch a clear face, they did catch a teenage boy spray painting move across our workshop. When confronted, the boy admitted a neighborhood lady had paid him $200. The description was unmistakable: platinum blonde, white Lexus, designer yoga pants. Brenda had gone from gossip to manipulation to violence, and I knew it was only a matter of time before she struck at the house itself. The final piece of her puzzle revealed itself late one night, while I pored over old HOA documents. Buried in legal jargon was a clause so dangerous it made my blood run cold: Emergency Property Acquisition Protocol. With the right signatures, the HOA could label any property a community threat and force a sale through municipal partnership agreements. It wasn't paranoia anymore, it was a business model. In city after city where Brenda had lived, holdout properties had burned, flooded, or been condemned, and every single one had ended up sold cheap to developers tied to her. My house wasn't her target because of chickens, it was because we were the last known HOA parcel in Willowbrook. The harassment, the poison, the false reports, they weren't about community standards, they were about money. About forcing me off land worth nearly $1 million. And Brenda was about to make her final move. We discovered it almost too late. Diesel-soaked rags stuffed into storm drains near our property. A rental truck circling at 2 a.m. surveillance cameras, catching men in dark clothes, mapping our gas lines and electrical junction box. This wasn't vandalism, it was arson, staged to look like an accident. I evacuated Alina and the kids under the excuse of a weekend trip. I stayed behind, hidden in an abandoned barn across the creek with my friend Jake, an investigative reporter. Cameras ready. Fire department on standby. At 2:17 a.m., the truck arrived. 2 men emerged, carrying gas cans and timing devices. They worked with chilling precision: foundation corners, workshop walls, gas meter, professionals, hired hands. Brenda hadn't just escalated, she'd outsourced destruction. Every second, I wanted to run across the yard, to stop them from pouring gasoline over the soil where my children had once played. But patience was the only weapon that mattered. Documentation beats confrontation. When they finished, I called it in. Fire Marshal Rodriguez arrived within minutes, confirming what I already knew. This was professional-grade arson, and thanks to our footage, faces, license plates, methods, we had evidence airtight enough for federal prosecutors. The arsonists made their fatal mistakes celebrating at a diner down the highway. Security cameras caught them laughing, cash in hand, burner phones buzzing. Within hours, state police arrested them. Their phones had only one contact number. Payment traced back to Brenda's investment account. At 5 a.m., they pulled Brenda over on the interstate, suitcases packed, laptop in the back seat, clearly trying to flee. Her hard drive was a treasure: chest emails, shell company records, even communications with the arsonists. The facade was gone. The Queen of Willowbrook had become a criminal with no escape. By noon, our story was national news. HOA president arrested in arson plot, blared across CNN, Fox, and NBC. Reporters lined our street. Neighbors who once whispered against us now left pies on our porch, shame in their eyes. Councilwoman Webb, the politician who'd helped build Brenda's empire, resigned in disgrace before lunch. Federal prosecutors announced RICO charges, a criminal enterprise spanning multiple states, and for the first time in months, I felt something I thought I'd lost: relief. The courtroom was packed weeks later, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward, the air buzzing with anticipation. Brenda sat in an orange jumpsuit, hair unwashed, the mask of perfection finally shattered. 17 felony counts: wire fraud, conspiracy, attempted arson. When the judge read her sentence at years in federal prison and over $2 million in restitution, I didn't cheer, I didn't smile. I just breathed, slowly, deeply. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about restoration. The HOA collapsed within weeks. dissolved by embarrassed residents who wanted nothing more to do with it. Our neighbors formed a new voluntary association, focused on community barbecues and block parties, not control and intimidation. For the first time in years, Willowbrook felt like a neighborhood again. 6 months later, hammers and saws filled the air where silence once lingered. Our home rose from the ashes, rebuilt stronger, safer, brighter. Solar panels gleamed on the roof. A new chicken coop bustled with fresh life chickens, my daughter named Justice, Liberty, and Hope. Fitting names. On our porch, Alina sipped her coffee, Dakota and River laughing as they chased the birds. The oak tree we planted stood taller now, a symbol that even after fire, new roots can grow. And as the sun dipped low, I realized something. Brenda thought she could use fear, fire, and fraud to take away everything we loved. But all she really did was prove a truth I'd lived my whole life. Bullies win only when you stay silent. When you fight back with patience, with documentation, with the law, David really does beat Goliath. This is more than my story. It's a warning. It's a lesson. And it's proof that justice, slow though it may be, still burns brighter than any fire.